Just need a quick 20... Oh, whoa! We're seeing headlines across the U.S. of ATM jackpotting attacks. But what is that, and why are these machines just dumping out piles of cash all over the country?
We'll show you the tool they're using, how it works, and how they're getting caught.
Behind the surface, follow the chain from initial access to lasting pain. With detective lock, the signal's clear, breaking it down logically here.
Next time, I'm paying with plastic.
In 2010, the hacker Barnaby Jack gave a talk at the Black Hat Security Conference. He walked onto a stage in Las Vegas, pressed some buttons on the ATMs, and they sprayed their cash all over the stage. This attack took him a lot of research and coding to plan out beforehand, but that demonstration in Vegas was very real. He called it jackpotting.
And his name was Jack? Come on.
The moment those machines dumped out all that money, it captured the attention and imagination of hackers, robbers, and just regular people around the world. After his demonstration, it was inevitable that someone somewhere would figure out a way to jackpot ATMs. Turns out Russian gangs had figured this out years earlier, and they had been deploying ATM malware for years. But they realized that jackpotting an ATM triggers an investigation when the tech comes to service the ATM and the cartridge is empty. They figured out it was more profitable in the long run to use the malware to skim card information. They could collect the payment card stripe and the PIN and sit on it for a while. If 100 cards all get fraud alerts on Tuesday after being inserted into the same ATM on Saturday, it's easy to trace this back to the common point of purchase and determine the ATM is compromised, triggering an investigation just like jackpotting would. But they age this collected data, warehouse it, they mix it up in random batches collected at different times from different ATMs before they sell or use it, and this makes it harder to trace back to the common point of purchase. Someone is continuing to develop new malware and make it run on newer models of ATMs from a wider range of manufacturers. I want to answer what you might be wondering, as well as manage expectations. Yes, we will execute the malware.
And no, we will not jackpot an ATM.
Maybe just a small one? 2025 saw more and more cases of this newer malware in ATMs. 2 men were caught and potentially facing the rest of their lives in prison.
Count 1 alleges that each of you committed conspiracy to commit bank fraud. Count 2 charges you with conspiracy to commit bank burglary. Count 14 charges you with bank fraud. Count 32 charges you with bank burglary. Count 50 charges each of you with intentional damage to a protected computer.
Mr. McWilliams, how does your client intend to plead to those charges?
We plead not guilty.
They pick the lock to the top hat.
Allegedly.
That's the part of the ATM that conceals the computer ports. Then they connect a Raspberry Pi. For those who don't know, a Raspberry Pi isn't just food. It's a handheld computer developed in England for educational purposes, but by now it's been used in more places than we can even imagine. Of course, a lot of these ATMs are lacking basic security measures, and the gangs scout out the easy one. How were these 2 caught? In Hollywood, criminals always pick up an unmarked phone from a dead drop, look around nervously while they make one call, and then snap it in half, throw it in a volcano. In real life, they go down to the local mobile phone kiosk, pick up a new smartphone in their own name, bring it around to all the crime scenes with them, chatting up their friends, taking pictures of the crimes. When they checked the cell phone tower records, they found there was only one phone that was in all of those locations at just the right time.
It's called a geofence warrant. Law enforcement requests that the cell phone companies provide a list of all cell phones at specific cell tower locations at specific times. There are over 10,000 of these warrants requested every year in the United States. And that number doesn't even include the other ways they use cell phones to track people, like a CSLI warrant. Give me the movements of this specific phone over time. Or IMSI catchers, stingrays. These are radio honeypots that bait cell phones into connecting to them so they can establish location and intercept data.
Seriously, look through testimony from FBI agents sometime and see how often they catch people by tracking the location of their cell phone from their house, past a cell phone tower, through the crime scene, past another cell phone tower, down to McDonald's for some Happy Meal afterwards. I suppose they learned their lesson back in 1995 when they finally caught Kevin Mitnick, the most wanted man in America, the most notorious hacker, who the prosecutor said could launch a nuclear strike by whistling into a payphone. Because when Mitnick was on the run for 3 years, he was tracking the FBI's cell phone locations, and that's how he always stayed a step ahead of them. Of course, eventually he realized that one person gets tired, an agency doesn't. Back to present day, these two were just the beginning of uncovering a massive conspiracy, slowly unraveling, of gangs hitting at least 1,500 locations for millions of dollars. The FBI found that the gangs were using an updated version of Ploutus malware. Ploutus was first uncovered in Mexico in 2013. Ploutus operates by hooking into the CEN XFS, that's the Extensions for Financial Services Middleware, a standard framework that bridges an ATM's operating system with the peripherals like the cash dispenser and card reader. It's not producing fraudulent transactions or impersonating the bank or anything like that. It's just directly hooking in and sending the signal for that cash cartridge to dump its cash. The attacker checks out the ATM's tamper sensors and disables them, then opens the top hat of the ATM.
The top hat just means the top part of the ATM housing where the computer is kept. It tends to be less secure than the vault, where the cash cartridges are kept.
They can do this using a master key or lock picking. In Europe, they've been melting a hole in the case and inserting an endoscope.
Yeah, that tracks.
They used to connect a keyboard and CD-ROM drive to the ports inside the top hat, but what the FBI has been seeing in the current wave of attacks is those Raspberry Pis. A Raspberry Pi can emulate a keyboard, a CD-ROM drive, pretty much any device you can think of. They changed the registry to make the user init registry key point at the Ploutus launcher, reboot the machine, hide nearby, talking to their fellow criminals on their new iPhone, taking selfies, waiting to see if the coast is clear or if the tampering has been detected by those sensors or in some other manner. These underground software developers sure are putting a lot of time and effort into keeping this software updated and working, staying ahead of defenses. What do we think's going on here, Locke? They doing this for the hacker culture?
Hacker culture? You sound like you're from the 90s. All they care about is bare cut of that stolen cash.
When developers build sophisticated ATM malware like Ploutus, they don't just write the code and send it out. They need to protect their investment from researchers who want to reverse engineer it and build defenses, as well as other gangs who want to use it without paying the developer for it. To do this, the creators of Ploutus turned to a commercial tool called .NET Reactor, which you're seeing on the screen right now. It's a legitimate product designed to help software developers protect their intellectual property. But here, well, it's being used for the same thing here. .NET Reactor provides two key layers of defense. It provides obfuscation, so it takes the malware's readable source code and turns it into a garbled spaghetti-like mess that's hard to wade through, hard to reverse engineer. Makes it incredibly difficult and time-consuming for analysts to understand how it works. Not impossible, but difficult. The second layer is digital rights management, or DRM. Think of it like a license check for the malware. The criminals can configure Ploutus to only run on machines when they authorize it. So gangs can't just run around using it on 100 machines without paying the developer for each of them. Okay, we've got Diebold.exe loaded onto the VM. That's the service, that's the launcher. So we're going to install that as a service in the command line. We're going to launch the service, see what we get. Well, if the service is launched, and it should be listening for keystrokes, F8 key specifically, followed by different sequences of F keys after the F8, triggered different commands for the malware. Not seeing the expected behavior, but of course this isn't a full deployment. We don't have any sort of authorization key. We don't have the ATM middleware and firmware installed on this VM. It's not an ATM. I'm going to pull up the logs and see what it's trying to do, at least. The service is running. We don't see it detecting any keystrokes. It might be an issue with how the VM works. I'm going to try using the on-screen keyboard inside of the VM because maybe the function keys aren't getting picked up by the VM here. I still don't see any change visually, so I'm going to pull the log back up and see what, if anything, that reveals for us. All right, we're going to kind of cheat here and just move on to launch the actual malware executable that the launcher I expected to launch. And the actual malware executable, the Ploutus D executable, is called Agilis Configuration Utility.exe. Oh, did you catch that change? The window title? When I launched it, it was Diebold. Now it's TeamViewer 0, or it's almost TeamViewer. That's not quite how you spell TeamViewer. In a working deployment, this would say TeamViewer and have a code. That code you would supply to the person at the command and control infrastructure, and they could take control. I'll play it back. Look at that closely in the red box. In the Wi-Fi config here, that's where you could set up a dongle to connect to a Wi-Fi network, so the ATM has network access through your interface. What's interesting, though, is we actually did see a network connection, or several network connections. Let's take a look at that. Looks like they're going to a dynamic DNS provider. Oh, in the right corner there, we see the VM detected the .NET reactor obfuscation. So that's good. That's what we expect. There's also a couple file artifacts it generated. Now that top one is just me unzipping the sample. That second one is a small binary that was dropped. Let's take a look at that binary and see if we can figure out what that is. Oh, cool. Ploutus made in Latin America XD. I think the XD is supposed to look like a smiley face emoji, but there's also these digits before it, C674D3ED721C. I don't know what that is. If you have an idea, drop it in the comments. But this is definitely Ploutus. This will have to be the end of the analysis section of our 15-minute episode, but I hope it gave you an idea of what you're seeing when you see these news articles about someone drives up to an ATM, tampers with it, they hide for a while, they come back, and it spits out money.
So how do we stop this malware anyway?
An ATM is a Windows desktop computer, a lot of them at least. Ploutus is Windows malware. If you know how to defend a Windows desktop computer from Windows malware, you know how to defend an ATM. Change the physical locks on the case to higher security locks and don't use the default keys that you can buy on. Use full disk encryption so attackers can't mount or change the hard drive without the right permissions in Windows. Use BIOS passwords or UEFI passwords to prevent the machine from booting from an unauthorized device. Application allow listing is critical. The ATM should block any executable that's not cryptographically signed and approved. There should be a limited list of executables you really need to run on your ATM. Just block everything else. Check for registry tampering. What do your user init keys point to? One last thing. If you have some sort of an idea that you want to jackpot an ATM,
Don't. Just don't.
why not? It looks cool.
The FBI is conducting high-profile work to track down jackpotters and make an example out of them and prosecute as many as they can grab.
I know there's no FBI where you live, but all the agencies share information, and there's somebody where you live who does not appreciate it when people start messing with the cash supply. I think this also demonstrates something important. These are not hackers trying out a new trick they learned at a conference. These are bank robbers being trained on stolen equipment by a powerful money laundering organization, and their current MO just happens to involve buying a piece of malware. Well, Detective Locke, I'll cash you later. Get it? ATM.
I got it, but I wish I didn't.